and semicolons. An interesting way to remember. We got the smiley face. We got the winking smiley face. Of course, a colon is two periods on top of one another. A semicolon, since semi means half, is half of a colon. It's the period on top and the comma on bottom. Let's talk about colons first. The first big reason for using a colon is a greeting in closing in a formal business letter. Now, this is a formal business letter, someone you would write to a boss or maybe a school or a place of business. All right. So the opening, of course, at the top of a letter, you title who you're writing to. Let's say we're writing to Mr. Brogy. We'd say Mr. Brogy, and then we'd give our colon. And you write your letter, starting on the next line, on and on and on and on. And then at the end, in your closing, you always want to close with something nice to say. You'd say maybe your faithful student, and then you would put your colon, and then, of course, sign your name. What a terrible signature. But you get the idea. Maybe if you're writing to President Obama, you definitely write a colon, unless you're really good friends with him. You write your letter, blah, 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 blah. And then we would end our video, or our letter. And I like the closing, yours in Christ, colon. Say we're writing a non-formal letter, maybe to a friend, like in class when you're not paying attention to my lecture. Yo, Rochelle, are we going to put a colon here? It's kind of too formal, kind of weird. Appropriately, in an informal letter, of course, we add a comma after the opening and a comma after the closing. Your BBBBBFFEAE would mean your best friend forever and ever. That's right. All right, separating hours and minutes. It's another reason we use a colon. Of course, you already know this, I'm sure. But look, between the hour and the minute, we put the colon, right? 1 and 2. And then again, if I'm writing hours, minutes, and seconds, it's all colon, colon, colon. Just like this, colon, colon. 10:45:07, you now know that means hours, minutes, and seconds. If we're counting down, we might include days. Like here's one form of the countdown, 4 days. And then 10, 17, 13. That's right, that's hours, minutes, and seconds. Here's a different form of countdown, 4D, 3H, 17S. We don't use colons here normally. Normally we would just put a comma. All right, so the next reason we'll use colons is to give a list. Please bring the following items to the party: plates, cups, napkins, and spoons. Okay, so here's our list: the plates, cups, napkins, and spoons. Before the list, we will put the colon. I have the following chores: take out the trash, clean my room, keep the tigers in the basement. Well, when we're doing a list like this, we put our colon. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence, but you're not going to put the colon directly after a verb like bring. It's an action to bring. It's not considered proper grammar to use the colon in that method. So if you were to do this, bring candy, food, toys, I mean, it makes sense, but it's not proper grammar, so we don't like to do this. So if you notice here, it says bring and have. The verbs are not next to the colon. Happen, fun, dancing, foods. I use this really silly example, happen, because I wanted you to see that, how silly it can look and how silly that sounds if you use the colon right next to the verb. So once again, remember, we don't put the colon right next to the verb. we should write it out as best as possible. Last reason for using a colon is if you have like two statements, like a compound sentence or say a cause and effect statement or a statement and an example. Basically where the first statement is more important than the second one, or the first statement leads to the second one, like this. He looked out across the landscape. Broken trees, torn fields, and hurricane-swept desolation. So I ask you, you know, is this a sentence? He looked out across the landscape. And obviously, it is. Come on. So we could put a period right there. Broken trees, torn fields, and a hurricane-swept desolation. That's not a sentence by itself, but it is related to what we're saying here. It's what he's seeing. So in this thing, it's not like it's kind of a list, but it's not. It's kind of like an example of his statement, what he sees, and so we use the colon to kind of show that we're moving into that idea or that description. Look at this one. He began to feel more like he belonged. I could put a period here. That'd be a sentence by itself. People talked to him in the hallway. They were laughing at his jokes, and he even made the team. So you see how this is the independent statement, and then this kind of gives you his other thoughts. It's kind of a less important statement. So we can link those together with colons, and you're going to see some of that in your practice. Okay, so this is the proper way to use colons. We use them in greetings and closings, separating hours and minutes before giving a list. And if we're leading from one statement to another, and in another video, we'll look at this part a little bit closer.